Today around 2 o'clock p.m., Steve Stevens streamed live on Facebook him killing an elderly gentleman.
It's happening more and more. Violent criminal acts being posted via social media. Today, we'll examine this disturbing activity and explore its cause and impact on society. I'm Vic Gregory, and let's get connected. Joining me is Dr. Ray Surrett. He is a professor of criminal justice at the University of Central Florida, and he has conducted research on this topic and published it in a book titled Media, Crime, and Criminal Justice, Images, Realities, and Policies. And Dr. Surrett, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
In your research, you refer to what you term as performance crimes. What exactly do you mean by performance crimes?
Well, at the simplest, performance crimes can be thought of as crimes that are purposely committed and aimed at an audience. And they basically boil down to two types with some mixes between the two. You can have a theater-type performance crime where the crime has a production crew and people go out and film it with the participants are knowledgeable about that they're being filmed and participating in a crime. And then you can have a nature-type film where people put up a hidden camera or such, and the participants are not aware that they're being filmed and are unwilling actors in the performance.
You also state that the popularity of performance crime is a byproduct of a society that became increasingly interested in the lifestyles and behavior of celebrities in the 20th century. Explain that, if you would.
Yeah, what happened over the course of the 20th century as the contemporary mass media developed is that the idea and the recognition that a celebrity had a market value and could actually be marketed as a commodity became known. And it's basically traceable to the Hollywood era of the media. This spilled over into criminality. Now, initially, the famous celebrities were celebrity criminals like Al Capone, and the cycle sort of went that somebody became a criminal, and usually after being arrested and convicted, they would write a book or there would be movies made about them. That shifted in the late 20th century to a focus on criminal celebrities. And these were people who were famous for other reasons and then became the focus of media attention because of their involvement in a crime. Examples of this are like the Aaron Hernandez, football player, some Hollywood actors and things like that. But the clear shift is that it went from being a criminal first to then being a celebrity because of your criminality to being a celebrity first or famous for some other thing and then being connected or linked to criminality. The latter ones being a bit more socially palatable.
In the paper that you've written on this topic titled Performance Crime and Justice, you share, quote, "The adage that no publicity is bad publicity is the current guiding rule for many individuals who pursue criminal infamy as a substitute for unattainable law-abiding fame," close quote. Performers who carry out criminal acts via social media have an immediate and exponentially exploding audience as posts are shared over and over again. Do you agree that a large number of these crimes would not take place if there was no appetite for them?
Well, that's an empirical research question that I don't have an immediate answer to. Clearly, some of the crimes would not take place, but whether it would come down to be described as large or not is simply unknown. How the media mostly affects crime is to shape it more than to cause or trigger it. So a lot of these people were going to commit a crime of some sort, and the media and access to social media shapes the form of the crime. So if you take the man up in Cleveland, he was clearly so disturbed that he was going to do something horrible. the social media platform, gave him a means of doing it in a particular way. If it wasn't available, I don't think he was going to go get counseling or something. I think, he might have shot his girlfriend. He might have gone to the mall and shot people there or something. But so I think that the impact is more in the crime you end up with more than whether you have a crime or not. I mean, the media doesn't generally have the power to cause people to commit behaviors that they haven't already committed to in some fashion anyways. At least that's what the research suggests so far.
Well, let's explore this a little more. In that same paper, you write, quote, "In a pernicious process, the social need to share that drives performance crime also enhances the sense that criminal acts are socially acceptable because their social media distribution has a waiting audience," close quote. Do you believe that there is a growing perception that these criminal acts are acceptable?
Yeah, to an extent. I don't think they're seen as morally acceptable. Clearly, they're seen as acceptable by the offenders because there's no real effort to hide identities or to be secretive about it in any fashion. In terms of the general public, I think there's probably, I wouldn't use the term acceptable. I might use the term common, or it might increase an expectation or tolerance for these sorts of behaviors. The idea of, well, this is just something that happens over and over again. I don't get the sense that people react to it and say, well, that's okay, except maybe on the part of the offenders. What social media gives the offenders is an avenue to grab some attention in a way that wasn't available to them previously.
As a casual observer, I have been shocked about how brazen people tend to be while using social media. Statements that would never be made face-to-face or acts of violence that people would be reluctant to carry out in public seem to be posted without reservation. Do you have any opinion as to why that might be?
Yeah, at first I have to agree that there does seem to be a lack of sense of shame on the part of these. Most people commit crime and try to hide the fact that they're committing a crime. These are the polar opposite of that. On pure speculation, why that is, I think probably the acts are posted with a small audience in mind, a group of friends, the football team or the buddies at school or something. And there's no thought through that the real audience might be hundreds of thousands of people. There also seems to be this expectation of some sort of positive results, either in status or fame. And there's also this sort of goal to be the top performer in an area. There's, there is some research that, particularly with these mass murderers, that there's a scoreboard mentality of, I want to kill more people than the prior people who did this sort of thing. Some of the school shootings seem to reflect this sort of goal.
We're talking with Dr. Ray Surratt. He is professor of criminal justice at the University of Central Florida and an expert on the impact the social media is having on crime. Dr. Surratt, would you say that certain types of crimes like bullying, pedophilia, sexual predation, and even recruitment for terrorism have increased with the use of social media?
I wouldn't use the word increase, but I would say they have become easier to commit. Again, it's an empirical question as to what the actual impact on the numbers are. Part of the problem with looking at it, the impact on crime in general and the levels of these sorts of things, is that you're not sure if, for example, bullying is actually increasing or whether it's being reported and recognized more because of media attention. So there's the research on crime in the media hasn't shown any strong, significant effects at the aggregate level. But it does, again, seem to be able to change the form and shape of crime. So you might get more of a type of crime, but overall crime doesn't seem to be moved that much.
What is the solution, or is there a solution to this problem?
there's no good solution, that's for sure. And there's no solution that I see as sort of being independent and separate from simply addressing general crime and violence in society. What you have, in my opinion, is you have people that are criminally predisposed, violently predisposed, and they now have a platform for sort of distributing that information, or that wasn't there beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
The analogy I've used with my students is when people get an obscene phone call, they don't say, well, we've got to get rid of the phone company.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to offer a service to the public, there are going to be people, there are bad people in the world, and there are going to be people who are going to use the communication platforms, whatever type historically have been created, have been used for bad purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes sort of a balancing act between trying to minimize that utilization of it versus the positive benefits that you get from having free-flowing communication between people. The telephone company, if you're getting an obscene phone call over and over again, the telephone company has to give you a mechanism to block that call, and they need to follow up in terms of enforcement. So the people who have a history of abusing the content need to be banned. So once it's posted, then they need to go after it as fast and as quickly as possible.
Well, we've just about run out of time, but as we wrap up, tell us how our listeners can obtain the information that you've published concerning this topic.
Ironically, I'm going to recommend for people who want to get into the research at all and see what sort of results are out there, which I strongly recommend that people actually look at what's known about topics, is there's a sub-search routine that Google puts out, Google Scholar. And it's a search engine where you could type in my name, you could type in crime in the media, you could type in social media and crime, and it'll, in seconds, will bring you up and give you access to a couple of decades of research on that topic.
All right. Google Scholar, that's the search engine.
Right.
All right. And we've been talking with Dr. Ray Surrett. He is professor of criminal justice at the University of Central Florida and an expert on the impact that social media is having on crime. And Dr. Surrett, I appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to join us today.
I enjoyed it.
That's our broadcast on the Bible Broadcasting Network.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.